Well, Phil, should we get things started?
I think we should. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we've got an hour to essentially, to reintroduce the format of these AMAs. We like to kind of start with a theme, but really it's an opportunity for anyone to submit questions to Phil, either prior to this AMA and get his thoughts on various hot topics, or for those in attendance to ask Phil anything. And, you know, for us, we like to put him under the spotlight and put him under pressure a bit. So I invite all those who are in attendance to submit any questions on the chat function. But yeah, Phil, first AMA of 2024.
I
And
know.
the theme of this AMA is sales topics to watch in 2024.
Okay.
So I just wanted to start with where your head's at, really.
Where my head's at, golly. Yeah, I think 2024 is going to be quite a tough year. If we're looking at the various events going on in the world and the impact it's having, on the clients that we're working with. So yeah, so I think it's going to be a fairly challenging year. I know we've got at a macro level a huge number of countries going to vote for different prime ministers and presidents or whatever. So there's going to be a changing of the order, I suspect. Also, potentially in the UK as well at the end of this year. So whenever there's sort of political uncertainty, you tend to get some caution around investment that's being made in business, and that's absolutely going to have a filter on down effect into the kind of projects that customers want to invest in. Therefore, perhaps at a very general level, make it more challenging an environment. But of course, they're going to be, depending on which sector you're in, they're going to be sectors that are going to thrive and sectors that aren't going to thrive. So it's very much based on the kind of nature of the business that you're in. But yeah, so I think, but overall, I think it's going to be a fairly tough year. But we've had that in the past, and we've navigated the pandemic in the past. But I think that change and transformation, as we talk about so much on these conversations, is something which is it's a given now. You just have to deal with it as best as you can. So generally, yeah, I think if we're looking at, what's the business environment going to be like, I think it's going to be fairly challenging, fairly tough. Yeah.
And just following up on that, from the different clients that you're speaking to at the moment, are you hearing any kind of common themes that they are concerned about in 2024? Do you feel like there's a shift in pace, or what can you take
Well,
from current conversations you're having with
that's
clients?
generally one. I mean, we're dealing with companies in the industrial sector who, rely on steel imports. So what's happening in the Red Sea and around that is affecting supply chains. I think it's not just heavy industrial, but we're definitely getting that. We've got, of course, the significant I don't know whether revolution is too strong a word, but we're seeing the impact of AI and how technology is actually impacting customers. I mean, one of our clients has recently announced sort of 8,000 redundancies, but not just because of the economic climate, but actually because they see AI now being able to automate a lot of the roles and functions that are happening inside the organization. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of that sort of kind of moving forward. So yes, there's sort of AI driven business models that are evolving is something which I think is going to affect every organization that we're dealing with.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for that. I thought I'd just jump straight into some of the questions that were submitted prior to the webinar. We have a question from Ian Jones, who's usually a regular, but couldn't actually attend this one. Ian said, the form and substance of many sales relationships were destroyed in 2020 by the lockdowns. Is there yet a clear pathway to a new form and substance for the relationship that will satisfy customers and reward salespeople in 2024 and beyond?
I mean, it's a pretty big question, and I think definitely there has been a huge impact, sort of pandemic induced, about the whole nature of the way salespeople engage with customers. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is a reverting back to the importance of client relationships and face-to-face contact, which I think can only be a positive sign, because I think a lot of the magic that happens between a salesperson and a client, and the innovation and the brainstorming you can do is enhanced if you can have that personal contact. So I think from a, if we're going back to the specifics of the pandemic, I think we've moved away from the relational side of things because of what's happened in the past, and we're re-emerging now into the importance of face-to-face contact, and we may lose a little bit in the productivity of salespeople in terms of numbers of calls that you can maybe go on. But you're going to see an increase in the depth at which innovation can take place and collaboration can take place. But I think in part we're also going to see, as we maybe have talked about before, is a focus of these sales models that are introduced by customers to focus more on the key accounts with a face-to-face direct selling kind of model, and then working either through channel partners or through inside sales teams, to keep that frequency of contact going with perhaps clients that don't merit that kind of closeness of relationship as well. So I think we're going to see continuing re-evaluation of the complete go-to-market kind of models that clients adopt.
Kind of brings me on to the question that Ben Long actually asked, which is quite a broad question, I think, but he submitted, how important are relationships when it comes to enterprise sales? So I guess he's asking, is there a difference between the importance of relationship when it comes to enterprise sales and non-enterprise sales? And how is it best for businesses to record the importance of relationships despite them not appearing on any balance sheets?
Oh, right.
Question from Ben Long from QA.
Thank you, Ben. I think this perhaps he's read a chapter of the book Selling Transformed in relation to the balance sheet kind of question, or perhaps even a previous AMA. I mean, I think I've covered the enterprise angle. I mean, enterprise accounts typically are your larger accounts, aren't they? And I think that relationships are so important, for selling into your large accounts. I think that the way the relational value is measured, which is asked, is something that we've looked at inside Consalia, and we've started to develop some metrics around the level of people that we're talking to, the frequency with which we're talking to people, the propensity of us to track. Is it us pushing the relationship forward, or is it the customer pushing the relationship forward to us? And this has helped us keep track of, which accounts are we deepening and broadening our relational contact with, and which accounts perhaps we aren't doing that on. And so we use a particular application called IntraHive, and it sits behind our Salesforce CRM and behind Microsoft Outlook. And it enables us in the background just to keep a track of, where our relationships currently sit, and indeed, are they progressing? And it throws up some really interesting information and data. Perhaps there are people inside the company that one wouldn't expect to have strong relationships with important decision makers, and we found that to be the case. So yeah, I mean, I think it is absolutely the tools now that we have at our disposal, not just through IntraHive, but other tools as well, enables us to really get to understand where the relationships sit and who are our ideal customer profiles and personas that we need to be selling to.
Great, thank you. Ben has also asked, what do you see as the difference between enterprise and regional sales in terms of method, approach, and importance?
I suppose enterprise sales could be more global and regional more geographic, sort of just trying to get a sense of what might be behind the kind of question. Enterprise sales could involve having to work with virtual teams that cross different cultures, and therefore adds more to the complexity of managing those large-scale enterprise relationships. So yeah, I think there's more complexity with enterprise sales, given that the accounts might be that much more global and the virtual teams that you're managing are that much larger. But many of the, there are many similarities as well in terms of how you create value, whether it's value at a regional level or value at an enterprise level. So without knowing a bit more about what's behind Ben's question, difficult for me to answer. Sadly, Ben's not with us to give us more information.
Okay, well, if Ben hears this webinar and has a follow-up question to Phil, then
Yeah.
please do follow up with us. Okay, I'm going to change tack a little bit. We haven't had any questions submitted so far to you, so I'm just going to continuing down my list of questions. But we ran a survey a few weeks ago on LinkedIn to see what people thought would be the most important topic of 2024, and I must say I was quite surprised with the results. I would have thought it would have been AI as the outstanding winner, but could you guess what the winner was? I can see you probably have it in front of you, so it's probably not much of a guess.
I do have the answers here, but I'd be very interested to know what those attending would say. But as to be the highest score. So if I could just sort of read out the headings, we had ethical / green selling and sustainability as one area. We had utilizing AI as another. We had data-driven selling as another. And we had collaboration and marketing as another. So we had these 4 themes, that emerged from the poll. And the question is, I think the question that you're posing, Will, was which is the one that it was felt through our LinkedIn survey was the one that was most ticked.
Yeah.
I don't know Shona, Will, Lindsay, Lee. Is it Shamez or Sham? And Alan, would you like to put into chat maybe what you think? As Shona says, data-driven. Will is data-driven. Okay. Lindsay, Lee. Alan, any? It's interesting. I think Arthur Zilberman would be very happy about this one, don't you think? Kind of like Jim, like to see ethical. Right. Okay, it's good to see your chat. Really, it's great to see you taking part in this as well. I think it's sort of like with James with a, oh, sorry, James with a ch. Right. Thank you. Right. So let's just go through yeah, the results we had of those headings was that data driven was the one that was most widely ticked. And let me go back to Shona. But Shona, do you mind? It's lovely having you on the call, by the way, Shona. Lovely meeting you last week. Why data driven? Are you able to unmute? Are we able to unmute Shona? Don't know if Shona's
I think
mic.
you will have to right
Oh,
click
how
on
do I
her,
do that?
Phil.
Okay, allow to talk. Oh, there we go. Shona, I've just allowed you to talk.
I feel very special. Very special that I've been allowed to speak.
So, yeah.
Lovely to see you, Phil. Lovely to see you last week. And nice to meet you, Will. Well, for us, data driven is something that's really important, and we're going through a big global transformation of our software so that we can absolutely do that. We've got lots of data in all of our businesses, I'm sure, but do we actually leverage that to then go on to have a sales proposition that meets what customers are wanting, the consumers want? So yeah, that, I think for me, that's the reason.
And do you mind me asking what sort of, when you talk about data, are there any specific areas of data that the organization is looking at, or is it all encompassing?
It's all encompassing, but I suppose the forefront of mind at the moment is repair. So I work for Autoglass,
Yeah.
and it's all about that repair rate and consumer behavior. So having that data and being able to feed that into kind of what we do is quite key to keeping obviously insurance claim costs down and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously ADAS is growing hugely. It's about 5% year on year. So that's something as well, looking at technologies and just kind of how we can work with our insurance clients, our fleet leasing companies to kind of help with those increased costs.
Yeah. Okay, that's great.
Thank you. You can mute me again if you
I
like.
guess you don't want to keep it on the spot. No, it's great. No, it's really interesting. I didn't have time to go through everyone, you know, on the chat at this stage, but I think from our experience of working with clients that that there are very few organizations that we work with feel as though they've got a complete handle on all of their data-driven requirements that they need to have to manage the business. It's a huge activity to ensure that across, you know, whether it's from demand gen to, like you were saying, Shona, sort of client retention, customer retention, right through the life cycle of a customer, being able to sort of have the right dashboards, have the information in a way that is fully up to speed, up to date with information that you kind of believe in, is something that I think few companies from our experience have got, you know, 100% fixed. And perhaps that's a reason why, Will, the data-driven stat that we've seen is mentioned is because, you know, just because it's so hard to do. It's quite interesting. Some previous research that I've cited actually in the book Selling Transform talks about the amount of money that organizations invest in CRM. And if you take CRM to uncover all of those data areas, and it's millions and millions of dollars actually go into, you know, the whole CRM kind of investment process. But the marginal gain that you could get from managing that CRM is quite elusive and hard to get, with it demonstrating perhaps not the kind of ROI that you would hope to get, considering the amount of investment that goes into it. And it takes an awful lot of self-discipline and discipline to actually get the data into a system that you know, that works. So yeah, It's such a big topic, and it maybe is going to be that journey into data-driven insights for the selling organization is going to be enhanced through the advent of AI and other tools, so that more of what we do gets automated. You don't have to think about it, and it works in the background to give information when we want it in the form that we want it. But no, that's it. That's it. Thanks, Shoni, for taking part in that. How are we doing, Will, with time and the questions?
Yeah, we're on track. I just wanted to ask you, or really get your thoughts on the point you've just made around CRM and data-driven selling. And I guess we've had plenty of discussions more recently with the advent of AI, and where is that applied within the sort of selling methodology, so to speak. And I guess what you've just said, well, it's only ever going to be as good as the data that you capture.
Yeah.
What you're sort of alluding to with your comment around CRM.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we had a fantastic presenter at our GST conference, and it picks up, I think, on Lee's comment here in chat. I'd like to see ethical, which is, do you believe in the data that you're receiving? And particularly when we start to look at things like predictive analytics, I mean, you have to be 100% confident that the data that you're actually getting is giving it to you in a form that can make you a better predictor of what the future business can be. And if you've got a question mark about it, you won't use the data. You'll start to use your own intuition as to how the future lies. So I think that there are some, sort of other surrounding issues around this whole governance issue of data and the ethical dimension that Lee's kind of referring to, which is really important. And it's something that we're, as a company, we're looking at this question in some depth. We're beginning to look at, obviously, how can we use AI to automate some of the data that we have available, and how do you have the right governance process in place so that the data is accurate and that that it's been ethically sourced.
Yeah.
So I think it's a hugely important area, and probably a topic of a lot of conversation as we come into 2024.
Absolutely. I mean, utilizing AI was number 2,
Yes, it was.
according to our respondents on our survey. And do you think, therefore, now, are we going to see more requests to see AI governance models or policies during, things like RFP processes and things like that?
I'd be very surprised if we don't. We haven't yet come up against any RFPs that have that as a specific line, line item. But I honestly believe that it will be coming, and therefore selling organizations need to prepare now for that for that question being asked, and to have policy in place, and to be able to respond in a truthful way about what their AI governance models are. So yeah, I think it's something that's going to come. How quickly it'll come, I'm not sure, but for sure it's got to come, doesn't it? It just has to come at some point. I think the challenge that regulatory bodies have is having a sort of kind of common framework for what good looks like as far as policy is concerned.
Yep.
And that was very clearly demonstrated by Lenny Montero when he was at the GST, and which those of you dialing in can get access to if you're really interested to learn more about this topic.
So that being said, to what extent should sales teams exercise caution on going sort of all in on AI?
Well, I think a lot of salespeople are using it every day now. You know, I think they're using it to help put presentations together. I think they're using it to put proposals forward. So I think that most salespeople are actually using it. It'll be interesting to ask that question of those attending. Perhaps in chat, could those of you in chat just could you share the extent to which you think AI is being used in your own organizations at the moment? That would be a really interesting feedback to get. Shown as minimally, right. Sharon, I don't know if you've tried using it yet, but it's yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
a lot of
managers definitely need to understand. I think people managing others need to be there before the others, in a sense, to know how these tools can help. But even if it's, you know, doing a SWOT analysis to keep, you know, on customers that you want to sell to, it's incredible what you can draw upon from AI tools, and it can help salespeople become more productive. I can see, yeah, Lee's begun to use it. Yeah, that's great. What about James? Gradually, but very ad hoc and team specific. Yeah. Okay.
feels
Yeah.
like we're at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting, just from talking to students that we're working with, Will and Mao, you know, we're seeing it sort of being highly, you know, used a lot. I don't know whether it's just our students or a specific sort of demographic, but we're definitely seeing, when I say students, you know, delegates on courses, you know, talking about it. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So number 3 on our list of most important topics was ethical green selling, which
Sustainability. Yeah.
yeah, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I think that what's really I think this is gaining in importance. I think organizations are really trying to get to grips with how to position their particular products in terms of you know, what they're doing to support the environmental challenges that we face as a humanity, but also net zero goals that might be set for their respective countries. So this is quite interesting. And I think that you know, we've had master's students, for example, who've completely changed the way they present the ROI of their solutions based around CO2 reductions and so on, appealing to clients and customers of theirs who are really driven by this sustainability kind of topic. And I think that we're beginning now to see at layers well below the sort of C-suite who are now having to publish their CO2 figures and so on, sustainability figures. We're now beginning to see that filtering right down to salespeople. So yeah, it was quite interesting. Again, going back to the last GST event that we ran, we had Royal Mail there, who have the largest electrical fleet in the country, and they'd kind of just done it. They hadn't broadcasted it, you know, as part of their sort of ROI articulation, but it was quite interesting to say that they were sitting on this sales asset that they have and perhaps not really promoting it as much as they could. But no, I think it's something that is becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
I mean, in our world, I mean, we're a small business. Yes, we've invested in solar energy panels, for the roof of our office. And we're not a big user of energy in the context of our particular practice. We have run our own self-assessment a year ago of how energy efficient we are at a personal level, which is quite interesting, quite frightening. So I think there is, I think definitely there is an awareness of sustainability, and I think we can see it around us, can't we, with the incredible changes taking place to climate, that we've got to respond in a positive way. So, yeah.
I'm going to ask you a sort of curveball question now, Phil.
Yeah, I thought I was going to avoid one of your curveball questions.
So net zero and, the UK's ambition to become net zero by, I can't remember the precise date, but around 2030. Do you think that that is an enabler for growth for Great Britain, or is that something that is actually going to restrict growth?
Well, I think Rishi Sunak has backtracked a bit from that particular sort of target, particularly with the electrification and vehicles and so on. So, and so whether or not we reach that target, I think I'm slightly skeptical that we'll kind of reach it. But it's got to be an enabler of growth. If clients are actually basing their decisions on things that matter to them, and if what matters to them is sustainability, then we're going to lose out if we don't go down this route. So, for me, it's an important aspect of what we do. I mean, one of the at a very basic level, one of the things, going back to an earlier question about the pandemic and relationship building and visiting customers. I mean, clearly, if you travel to see a customer, whether it's locally or internationally, you are going to be incurring, sort of your CO2 footprint is going to be enhanced. And I think I used to do at least 2 or 3 flights every month to different parts of the world to go and, either deliver workshops or see clients in different countries. And I'm kind of torn between this wanting to get back in front of people and see people face to face, where I think the innovation happens in client relationships, with should I really be jumping on a plane and going to visit someone that I need to. And I think that so I think that what I'm thinking is probably similar to others, that I really think it's important to do things that may not be as sustainable as they could be. But I don't want to use that as an excuse for not going to physically meet people, the sustainability angle. And one just hopes that sooner or later they'll invent aeroplanes that can run on hydrogen or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Recycled plastic, as Virgin have done, in order to power their flights. But the sooner that can happen, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, Will's just input it into the chat. There is a trend of returning to the office post-pandemic. And I guess, organizations need to have the conversation around the green environmental benefits of work from home versus benefits of being in the office.
Yeah, there's an awful lot on this, Will, that's happening in, you're seeing it, the banks are kind of wanting people to return back to the city. You're seeing, as far as the UK is concerned, the Mayor of London now sort of wanting to give cheaper train tickets. I think we're at 70% of the Friday travel into London now compared to pre-pandemic levels, and 83% during the other days of the week. So you've got some interesting pressures on, well, you're increasingly seeing more incentives for not incentives, directives, I think, from customers wanting their workforce to actually come back to work. It's quite interesting talking to a client the other day. They were saying that during the pandemic, when people weren't asked to come into the office, a lot of people moved away from the city. They've got bigger homes, they've got greener spaces to live in, they've got their children into, you know, local schools, and those people are now are being asked to come back at least 3 days a week into the office. So we're actually seeing quite a lot of organizational imperatives to come back to the office, but you know, people are going to be making their own decisions about whether they want to change their lifestyle and come back to the office, you know, based on the decisions that they've taken quite recently in the past. So I think there will be a genuine conversation around, you know, the green and the environment. Maybe they'll give you some bikes to travel around on, or, you know, I don't know. I'm just talking your trend of returning to work and the green environmental, you know, maybe there'll be more bike to work schemes or other schemes that will help reduce the CO2 footprint. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, you will be forgiven, Lee, for traveling to us. Yeah.
And then this is, I mean, interesting in itself. So the very fourth point on our poll that we took around trends in 2024, clearly designed by our marketing team, was collaboration with marketing, and no one voted for that as being
Eddie,
an important topic to cover in 2024.
Actually, I hadn't, yes, I hadn't made that connection, Will. So is Eddie's on the call, I believe, as our head of marketing.
Hello, yes, hello.
So Eddie, what do you make of that?
It's interesting, obviously, you know, we talk a lot about perhaps more sales and marketing alignment. And you know, there's a flurry of reasons why I believe, you know, marketing and sales should be aligned. But yeah, I'll be interested to run that poll again, and perhaps we'll see if there are any changes to the answers. Yeah.
Well, it could be, Eddie, that people feel that that's not so important because it's already working pretty well. Therefore, they've ticked the other boxes.
Well, I mean, that's my hope anyway. So
yeah, okay. That was very unfair, Will, to spotlight Eddie on this one.
I think you did, actually.
Oh, did I? Okay, sorry.
Okay, great. So I guess before, unless anyone has any other questions, I've noticed Shona, actually, I've just seen Shona's asked one question.
Oh, okay.
And, your comments regarding CRM.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so Shona mentioned, I absolutely agree that it's hard to measure the ROI. And it takes a lot of investment and time to have robust and accurate data. However, do you feel that without this, a sales team would or could fail?
Yes, Shona, the answer is yes, I do. But it's I don't think companies should underestimate the effort it takes to get a CRM working well in order to see the kind of economic benefit of it. But not having a CRM is going to be even worse. If you know, it's like a hygiene. It's something that is a hygiene factor, as we, you know, coming back to sort of Hertzberg's sort of motivational levels. It's one of those things you actually have to have, but once you have it, you kind of take it for granted. It's like you just got to have it. But the benefit of CRM is, like Will was saying earlier on, like you were saying earlier on, Will, it's the quality of the questions that you're asking of your CRM to give you intelligence. It can help you make use of the data. And again, I'm going to go back to the fantastic GST event that we had, and we had Offer Zilberman talking about data-driven insights and ideal customer personas. And if you've got the time, I'd recommend you took a quick look at his presentation. I think it's in the chat comment from George. You've got the link to the YouTube channel that we've got now, but it's really interesting. And I think if you needed any kind of belief that CRM is a critical factor, just listen to Offer's presentation and you'll know you need to have it, but you also need to have it set up to give you the information that will enable you to progress business. So yeah.
Super. Okay, I see we don't have any other questions, Phil.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your time. Very insightful as always. I hope
Thank you.
everyone else enjoyed it, and please join us for our next AMA and challenge Phil accordingly.
I think you've all been quite good to me on this call, so looking forward to a tougher challenge next time. But anyway, very nice to meet you all virtually. And
Just one
yeah.
more question from Eddie in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
So Eddie asks, what do you think companies need to do to invest more in their people this year? Companies tend to spend hundreds and thousands on software and tools designed to help people perform, but I can't help but feel that companies really need to start at the leadership level, as these are the people who are managing the teams who are using these tools.
Right. I think a lot of companies underestimate what it takes to transform their business. And I think that, you know, a lot of this word transformation is obviously is historically linked very much to digital transformation. And there's often a complete lack of appreciation of what it takes to underpin that digital transformation initiative with winning the hearts and the minds of the people who have to use it. So I think that this whole topic of how to lead employees through transformation is an important one. And Eddie, I would agree that there is sometimes a disconnect between what the leadership want to affect in an organization and what actually happens, you know, because they haven't invested enough time in developing and equipping, you know, the organization to understand what it takes to transform and the time it takes to transform. So yeah, it's a really, really good question. Yeah. Thank you, Eddie. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, I think on that note, we're just about finished, Will.
I think so. Thank
Let-
you.